And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. And you're joining us on our podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is JV Crum III. JV is a very interesting guy. He's been named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 13 business shows. He hosts the Conscious Millionaire podcast and radio network. They've got over 1,800 episodes and they're heard in over 190 countries. He's a number one best-selling author, a serial entrepreneur, made his first million at 25. He's a high-performing coach, and he is the owner of a accelerator or a mastermind group for conscious millionaires. So welcome aboard, JV. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, hi, Peter. And listen, a huge hello if you're listening today. I know you're in the right place, and I'm just excited to be able to connect with you. And Peter, thank you so much for having me on the show.
My pleasure. So you've got Conscious Millionaire, which is really awesome in terms of what it represents as a body of content. And you're really clear about who your targets are and how you're helping them. Talk to us a little bit today around the various sort of flavors that Conscious Millionaire comes in, from the books to the writing to the podcast, and how it connects all together.
Absolutely. So there's the book Conscious Millionaire: Grow Your Business by Making a Difference. And interestingly, it launched in the same 3-month time period as I launched our original podcast, which was back in the fall of 2014. When it launched, it literally became the number one book on all of Amazon. It was number one in 34 categories, and we had 50,000 downloads in just a little over 3 days. At the same time, I was launching our podcast, which we now have 7 podcasts and a radio network, over 1,800 episodes. Then I do private coaching. I run group coaching. Uh, Actually, tomorrow I'm starting another group program that's a training 6-figure business accelerator to help people with 5 and 6-figure businesses double their business in the next 12 months and move towards their first million. And then we do the accelerator mastermind. That's to help, again, 6-figure entrepreneurs, business owners, business coaches who want to accelerate specifically in the next 30 days. Let's get you identifying what is going to change your business the most in 30 days and get a rapid acceleration. So, and then I speak, I do keynotes. Next week, I'm doing an event where I have a breakout session actually on podcasting. So, that pretty much runs the gamut of what we do. And then we have, a lot of free giveaways. We're going to give one away today on how to be a high performer. So that's really all the different ways that we use things. But then we have a blog. We put articles out on LinkedIn. Every day we're putting images and quotes from me, our podcast out on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We do videos on YouTube about Conscious Millionaire. So, Instagram, we're very active on. So that pretty much covers what we're doing in terms of content.
So walk us through sort of the continuum of content, broadly speaking, in whatever format it is. On one end of the continuum, it starts off with the purpose of building awareness, right? You're putting a lot of stuff out there in a lot of different formats so that you can connect with the right people, get them to ultimately be engaged and realize there's so much more that you have to offer them in various formats. And then ultimately, for a subset of the audience that becomes aware and becomes engaged, they become clients of yours in one way, shape, or another. So what does that sort of content journey look like? Could you map that to an individual's journey of where I might trip over you first?
Yeah, it's a great question, Peter. I'd actually like to start with the 3 whys that I begin every client with and how we look at our podcast and everything that we're doing at Conscious Millionaire. And the first why is, what's the impact that we want to be making? And the impact actually can be more simply understood as, where are we engaging someone when we do our magic process and then they come to a place we call heaven, Conscious Millionaire heaven. That's where they want to go.
Okay.
And then the second why is, well, is the money, is like, what's the money I want to make and why do I want to make that money? So that informs everything, because it's a business. You should always be asking, how does this lead to a transaction? Because ultimately that's why you're in business, is to do transactions and change people's
Sure.
lives. And then the third part, which so many entrepreneurs leave out, is, well, why am I doing this for me as an
So from a
entrepreneur?
purpose perspective, is that what that?
Well, the purpose really informs that
Okay.
impact part. It's like, for me, my purpose is very clear. It's on the homepage. It's to uplift humanity and support the evolution of human consciousness. So I ask myself, on everything we're doing, am I doing that? Am I expressing that in some way? For in terms of the why as an entrepreneur, then that divides into two parts. One professionally, and the other is personal. So professionally, I am a guy who wants to play bigger, a lot bigger. And so I want to constantly raise the awareness of who I am and raise my status so that I can connect with other big players and we can find out ways to play
Okay.
together. So that's one of the things that I want personally as an entrepreneur. And then on the personal side is, I want time to be able to enjoy my life, to be able to travel, to go to different conferences. And so personally, I want the fulfillment that comes from waking somebody up to what's possible for them and taking them on a journey of achieving that. That to me is the biggest joy actually that I can have on the planet. So all of that informs all of our decision making, and that's different than just we want to get content out there and we want to have a content map. We want to get content out there because we want the content to be impacting people in a specific way, that it's helping them move forward specifically to getting to their first million, because that's our passion at
Okay,
Conscious
but
Millionaire.
your content has to, push back if you disagree, ultimately have two functions. One, it's got to have impact. So that's on the consumer side, right? Why would I invest my time and energy in reading your work and listening to your podcast and all that sort of stuff? I'm doing it for the to learn and to ultimately internalize those concepts that you've got and then to have some impact. But for you, in order for it to serve both sides of the coins, ultimately, you know, a percentage of the folks that get exposed to your content become clients, right? And that's what sort of feeds the engine. If you
Correct.
and what I like about you've done is it's not a one-sided equation here. It's good for the world and it's good for you, which is good.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, we look at it from a triple win. It's good for our clients, it's good for the world, it's good for
Yep,
us. And it's good for the world because we're transforming clients who are going out there and themselves making a positive impact as to how they make money. They're not just how do I
yep,
sell a widget? It's how do I do something that really matters to my client? Their life is better, their business is better. They're in a different place that's better for them. So you're right. So we do that through every show that I'm on. I give away something for free, for example, that we're going to do. And we traditionally call that a lead magnet. And then you get a name and an email, and people get to know more about you and hear about your podcasts and what we're doing. And then some of those people sign up for and apply for a call with me, or they want to know about a course. The same thing is in social media. Is I go in and personally and active on Facebook and LinkedIn at least a couple of times a day. If somebody leaves a comment, I leave a comment back to them. I ask a question, I engage, attempt to get to know them, and then that can lead. Well, hey, let's have a call and talk about it.
got it. So given that you are in many modalities, right, from podcasting to books to masterminds on Instagram, etc. What are the core sort of rules, but what are the things that you look for? Because I would imagine there might have been modalities that you tried that just didn't work for you or whatever. So how do you start something? How do you experiment, and then how do you decide whether to continue to nurture it or not?
Yeah, I think that it's a fabulous question, because you're listening today, and I can guarantee you that there's certain modalities you love and there's certain modalities you don't
Right,
love.
right.
All right. So in my case, I wrote what I really think is a fabulous book. I'm very happy with it. However, in the process, I found that the process of writing something like a book, and then I found writing even articles and blogs, were not exciting for me in the same way as, say, writing an email or writing sales copy. But certainly, what's really interesting is that my book that I'd worked on for a long time, I'm talking years, and my podcast came out basically at the same time. And I obviously don't have 1,800 books, but I do have 1,800 episodes. So I think we can conclude pretty quickly that I kind of like the microphone. Within 3 weeks, I knew I was in love with this medium. And now I'm beginning to make the videos, and I'm saying I want a TV show. I think I'd be good in that medium as well. So I like the spoken medium.
Hold 1 second there. So number one is you love it, you're good at it, you enjoy it, so that's awesome. But there's got to be that intersection of, and the people that you're trying to reach are also there, right? Because I have clients, for example, that are academics that love writing for academic journals. If you've never done that, that's typically spending 5 months of your life to publish something at a very, very high
Right.
standard
Yeah.
that's read by very, very, very few, right? So,
Right. No, I've
right.
actually did that in law school, so I
So
know
you've been
exactly what you're
lucky.
talking
How
about.
do you know that it's not just something you love, but you're seeing results in terms of growing your audience, your followership, customers, etc.?
Yep. Well, I'm going to make an assumption here, which we can agree on or not agree on, all right? And that is that there are going to be people who are interested in what we have to offer, interested in making their first million to make it really simple, and they want to make a positive impact. And they're going to be in every modality. So, what's important, I think, is for each of us to do the modalities that we're really great at, that we're passionate about. I mean, when I get up, like 2 days from now, I'm doing 2/3 of the day or podcasts. I think I have 5 podcasts that day. Well, that's an exciting day for me because I love it. But if I had to get up and write 5 articles that day, not because I can't, but because it doesn't hit my passion point, I wouldn't be that excited to get
So
up.
let's extrapolate that because let me sort of throw out some other examples. There are people that love keynote speaking. There are many people who that puts the fear of God in, right? The concept of getting up, even if it's for a good chunk of money, but speaking in front of 500 people, they'd rather have a simultaneous colonoscopy and root canal.
Right. And I would love doing that because it's spoken again, right? So this is a perfect
Yeah,
example. And some people would be
right,
horrible
right.
for.
And then there are others where you're a more verbal guy, so stick a mic in front of you, get the right person there, put some thought into it. Interesting things going to happen. Would you say that in all the podcasts and stuff that you're doing, using the spoken word as the primary paintbrush, if you will, you're also creating things that can be repurposed elsewhere, right? That come out
Yes.
of each of these podcasts. So talk about how you determine what the nuggets are and go about repurposing a cool little quote that comes from a podcast on some other format.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. Well, on all of our interview podcasts, we have a section on it that has questions, and those questions are preset. It's the last part of the show. And out of those questions can come nuggets. They're designed specifically to give the kind of information that our listeners want that'll help them move the needle forward, build their business, move towards their first million. And out of those come lots of nuggets that can be utilized in many different ways. And some of those get cycled into like our Instagram and Facebook and our
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn quotes where we do quotes from other people.
Got it.
So, that's a perfect example.
Cool. Could you give us an example of a format or modality that you experimented with and decided to pull the plug on and said, either I'm not getting the results or I hate this. I mean, talking about writing a little bit, but any other specific modalities that you just sort of said, yeah, not for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this year it's new for me doing videos, and I am noticeably to all my team behind on the videos that I'm supposed to be making. And I'm kind of exploring what's going on with that. I think it's more just sitting down and doing it, but there's a part of me that is realizing that I'm probably best, and I don't have the setup right now. I actually have something that I can use as a teleprompter, but it just doesn't fit where I'm at right now, the room. So I think that on the videos, I have a little bit of hindrance about not having a teleprompter at the moment. And I think if I had a teleprompter, that would work better for me because I seem to be able to read copy really well, as if it's completely extraneous. So there's an
Comes down to
example
not
of
having the right tool to do the
yeah,
job
that
well.
right now I don't have the setup where I have the right tools. And so I have to basically kind of memorize because we're doing 1 minute video, actually 55-second videos. And so I basically have to memorize that. And I think that's given me a little bit more hindrance on it. But I don't think it's that I don't like the video. It's just getting used to a different medium, basically.
Well, I think that getting used to piece is really the key because a lot of the folks that I work with are really good writers, right? They can crank out 100 blogs a month or articles articles in HBR, etc. They write books, they're prolific, and then you move them into something else, and that something else might even be the same written word, but let's start taking things and putting them out in short form blogs, 350, 400 words, and there's a struggle because as we become deep experts in what we do, we are not comfortable with that sort of novice mindset, right? So if you take someone that's been really good writing books or whatever the case is for 20 years and say, okay, now let's try this new thing. It's called the 400 word blog. They don't like feeling like that. It's uncomfortable. They don't have the fluency in it. It's almost learning a new language. Would you? How would you react to that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, we can kind of go back to podcasting, which I
Yep.
love, but when I first started, I had to figure it out. But I was curious to figure it out, and I think that curiosity is a really big clue. I mean, one of the chapters in my book is actually my favorite topic on the planet, and that's how to be in the flow. So, it's a very big part of how I live, how I run business, how I conduct relationships.
Sure.
And I think curiosity gets you into that present moment and gets you moving forward. I mean, it's one of the reasons I like interviewing because I'm curious. But I think if you're not curious about something, naturally it's going to be difficult. So the question is, can you open yourself up, which I believe you can, to curiosity about how could I learn to love writing 400 words rather than 100?
Well, so let me ask you the other side of that. So if you find that you're trying something new, and not the first time, because first time or a couple of times it could be a little funky, whatever, and you're just not all that curious about it, is that a sign that you're just not interested? Maybe it's not for you. This isn't going to work. At what point does that work itself through or not?
Yeah, that's a really great question because there are a lot of ways to approach that. When I feel that I'm forcing myself to do something, then I have to ask myself, what is missing? It doesn't necessarily mean what's missing is this isn't something that I ultimately should be doing or that's right for me or that fits for me.
Sure.
It might be that it's new and I don't feel confident. A lot of times I find in coaching clients that what's really going on is they don't have the steps. They don't have a process. They don't have a structure.
Okay.
It's kind of like today, other than being on 2 shows, I'm doing a lot of sales calls. But I have 100% structure now as to how I'm doing those. So I not only feel confident, I feel excited because I like talking to people. So, but there was a time that I hated doing that. I'd come up with everything in the world not to sit down and have to spend a day doing sales
I want
calls.
to touch on that structure because it's a really an amazing point because lots of people have a lot of structure in the areas of their life that they either needed it or that they're proficient in, right? If I'm a consultant, when I work with my clients, there's structures and processes and tools that I use to do certain tasks, right? I don't just sort of wing it. If I'm a speaker, I have structure around what am I doing before an event? What am I doing at the event? What am I doing after? Some of it is almost process, some of it is ritual. So when you're going into a new space, and your objective is, I want to be good at writing short form blogs, as the example, you might want to ask yourself, based on what you're saying, well, what's the structure I would need to do that? Do I need to schedule 90 minutes on my calendar as a block of writing time? What time in the day should I dedicate to that? Knowing my tendencies. Am I a first in the morning kind of guy, or is it mid afternoon with a cup of tea? Right. So, how do you sort of invent or develop the processes to support the objectives?
This is a fascinating question. It happens to be something that I've done a lot of thinking about because it's a whole chapter in my
Great.
book. I love this area. So I'm going to just do a side note first because I think this is so
Sure.
critical because I brought up flow. And a lot of times people interpret flow as kind of loosey goosey, fluffy stuff. It's not. It's not. It's about being in the
No, it's
zone.
real.
One of the things I want to mention about structure and flow is the difference between a body of water that's just kind of spread out, maybe in a circle called a pond or a lake, and a body of water that's flowing like a river is the structure of the banks.
Right.
Without structure, there actually isn't any flow. And most people don't think about the fact that, the flow's process, yes, but it's a process that occurs within a structure. And that's why the flow of energy actually occurs. So
Right, you can't have flow with lack of process. It wouldn't exist.
it
It would be
wouldn't
a stagnant
exist.
pond. It
Actually,
would just
both of them are necessary. And I think it's really important to honor
Yep.
that so that we all know that and I'm saying that because I am a process oriented person. I'm all about systems, but without structure, there are no
Right.
systems. So now let's look at the question you asked. So I have a system where you can't have more than 3 priorities for a day. Test it. It's really hard to have more than 3 and do them. And then just skipping to the bottom line, you're going to chunk your activities. Here's one of the secrets I discovered, and I've taught this to so many people, and it's like it's a big aha. There's fast energy and slow energy types of activities. You can divide all activities into one or the other. So fast activities are emails, phone calls, being on podcasts, doing what we're
Yep.
doing. Slow is writing, working on a project. Like I typically take
Requires
my
more
Saturdays
thoughtfulness.
and I
Yep.
work on projects because I have a hard time doing that in the middle of the day on a weekday. It just doesn't seem to work for me. But I batch the day into slow moving activities and fast moving. Like, for example, when I'm doing the podcasting, frequently I do 7 shows in a day. So I'll do 4, I'll have an hour break, and then I'll do another 3. In that hour break, I can look at emails if I want, because that's another fast moving activity.
Sure.
But I can't sit and write a blog because that requires me slowing my energy down so I can be reflective. So start by
So
dividing.
you can bang out, you could use that time to knock out sort of, I don't say low
Oh, I
thoughts,
could
but
answer every
things that
email I
don't
have
require,
in that time.
right, right, emails and rapid fire things and things that don't require a lot of contemplation or introspection or whatever, sort of low brain functioning things, if you will.
Now, for example, after you've knocked out all those emails, let's say you're writing a book. So I've written a book. I'm probably going to start another book later this year. And what I found is I had to chunk time periods where, like, for say 2 hours, I was going to write. And then sometimes I had to be flexible with that because if you're listening and you write in any capacity, you know there's something called writer's block and we all get it. Like, you go, why is that I can't think of a single idea to make a sentence? What I found, somehow I'm always living like within a block or two of the athletic club, which always is nice. I'm 3 blocks now, but I was a block at the time I'm thinking of when I was writing the book. I'd go over to the athletic club and do an hour of aerobics, like treadmill, and let all this energy kind of process through my body. I'd come back and I would like have a million ideas and could just sit and write. So sometimes you have to go do another activity that's a fast moving activity to unblock the energy so you can come back and do the slow moving activity.
Interesting. This has been fabulous. As we start to wrap up, I know you had a gift for folks. So let's tell them where they can get that gift from you.
Sure. Well, I work with people who want to be high performers. And I know if you're listening today, you want to be a high performer. You want to go to some level you're not at right now. You wouldn't even be listening. So, first, I want to congratulate you for taking that step. The high performer formula will give you the steps to becoming a true high performer and going to your next level. And you can get it at consciousmillionaire.com. So that's consciousmillionaire, my brand.com/high performer. So consciousmillionaire.com/high performer. So it's consciousmillionaire.com/high performer. And you can get the high performer formula and download it there.
Awesome. Great. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing everything that you did with us today. Lots and lots to learn from you as you've dabbled and succeeded in many modalities, and you've got some really amazing content and doing some great stuff with it. So thank you for sharing all that you did with us today, JB. I appreciate it.
Well, Peter, it's really a pleasure to be on with you. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. And I just want to give my best to you. You're listening today. What I always say on a podcast, there's no accidents. This was information that was right for you. And what I want to challenge you is to take something from today's show and in the next 24 hours, put it into action.
Good stuff. Good advice. Thank you so much.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.